Hi there, thank you very much. I'm the CEO of Webshield, which is a software company, and also the co-founder of EP3 Foundation, which stands for Empowering People with Privacy and Personalization. That's a 501c3 nonprofit. We have close to 100 fellows and trustees and a bunch of affiliate partners, and it's basically a multi-sector collaboration around trust. And the problem we're solving is you can't trust the internet, let alone the blockchain. Right now, data, it doesn't flow where it's needed, and it's breaching all the time. I think this new Cambridge Analytica is just a marketing program for us, telling people how important privacy is. And if it's that scary when you're talking about clickstream data on Facebook, and now you want to start talking about insurtech with highly regulated, sensitive, proprietary data on a global scale, where your user population is pretty much anybody in the country who might be delivering services, it's a problem. So the solution to this problem, if I can get it to work, is we've invented a number of new breakthrough innovations. There's quantum privacy network and the proof of trust blockchain are the two key ones. Quantum privacy network basically allows you to take any data, algorithms, other resources, renders it completely obfuscated gibberish, yet still fully computable. You can do any computation or policy enforcement while the data is completely meaningless gibberish, and get verifiably accurate results and control access to individual people, individual attributes on a single device for a single purpose, one time, once. So now to do that, we have what we call the proof of trust blockchain. You may have heard about the proof of work, proof of stake. Chinese Bitcoin miners are not going to give you guarantees on regulatory compliance or privacy protection. So what we allow you to do is bind what we call trust criteria and trust credentials to any resource. A resource can be data, algorithms, the right to display a brand, the right to use computing infrastructure, really anything. Crypto and trust criteria are like regulatory compliance. It has to be HIPAA compliant according to ENAC. Payment and licensing terms, authorized recipients, authorized purpose of use, any constraint you want to put on the use of your resource. Trust credentials are, what are the audit trails behind this? What is this data? What is this resource? Where did it come from? What is it certified? What does it mean? Bind those things together, and then the trust criteria and trust credentials are automatically inherited by any aggregate or analytic output derived from your resource ad infinitum. So 50 years later, if there's one attribute that had to be HIPAA compliant 50 years ago, nothing derived from that will be allowed to be released unless that trust criteria is satisfied. Now, how do you get people to trust this? Well, our approach is to get the network. The level of security and privacy control we deliver is far higher than any law or regulation on the globe requires. Because we never reveal any data to anybody unless they're specifically authorized and it's only on their device. So what we're doing is getting the network assessed and certified by the regulatory bodies and nonprofit associations that people already rely upon to enforce GDPR. That's a new one, but Gramm-Leach-Bliley, HIPAA, FERPA, you name it. And then we're having it adopted by the federal government so we can get the network FISMA and FedRAMP certified. So effectively, the US government is saying it's HIPAA compliant. One interesting byproduct of this is because the network never reveals any data and your trust criteria are cryptographically bound to your resource indefinitely, that means you don't need to have legal agreements with various parties that are pooling resources, nor do you need to have consent, because this network never reveals any information to anyone unless they're specifically authorized, like the patient themselves or to their personal doctors that they approved of. So what emerges is basically the privacy network creates this global supply chain for data from people, devices, faxes, any kind of data with full provenance. You have all the credentials of data, you know where it came from, how it's been transformed. It creates a marketplace with four core what we call privacy domains. Authorization network creates a global directory and discovery service for people, devices, documents, everything has identity. Handles cybersecurity, surveillance, consent, authorization, but all it releases is there's an authorized request for this data, you are directed to send it to this address. We're not telling who's asking or why, but here's our credentials why you have to do it. Everybody delegates to the authorization network. Data transformation happens within the data syndication network. It creates a global profiles about everybody and allows them to be globally pooled. Trust credentials are where you allow it to be specific. What does trust mean to you, to various authorities? And then payment and licensing. So then what happens is if you want to run your big data, you can do your analytics, you learn something, interact with some person, and give them information, see their responses. That's how machine learning happens, except no enterprise, no government anywhere ever saw that information. What emerges from that is a global marketplace for everything. And the way you pool these resources using what we call asset-backed crypto derivatives. So say one solution is a smart health plan that's 30% cheaper than a dumb health plan because it knows everything about people, can deeply personalize, do evidence-based reimbursement, all this other good stuff. Now it needs comprehensive profiles about all these users in real time. It contracts with the data syndication network and says, okay, we'll give you 15% of our revenues if you allow us to use all that data from everybody about this stuff. Now, when people publish their resources, like the right to use my cloud infrastructure, the right to use my data, you can bind in your trust criteria, which include your commercial terms. So you can get a derivative interest in like, okay, well, if somebody ends up using this to cure a particular type of cancer, right, I will get my share of the revenue from that. And the assets it's backed by is a combination. If you take like this data network, it has data from all over the place running through somebody's algorithm, somebody's data model to link it together and reconcile it. Somebody's computing infrastructure was used. So people had rights to all those assets. They delegated specific rights and they get a crypto derivative. You could cash it in just like you could have sold your Bitcoin 10 years ago, would have been a big mistake. Or you can convert it into cash, you can convert it into a personalized, healthcare, personalized back rub, whatever you want. The key is trust. Somebody earlier said it's about privacy, regulatory compliance. Unless you eliminate those issues, you will not have a marketplace. You'll have silos, and you'll have privacy disasters. So we have not enough time to talk about it, but it's a unified trust model allows anybody to be specific what trust means to them around how do you do audits, how do you do policy enforcement, everything else. This can be populated by anybody's technologies, anybody's systems. We have dozens and dozens of partners. It's extensible, but the key is by getting the network certified, for example, by the federal government or by the GDPR compliance folks, then you're not relying, you don't have to call your lawyers. You have verified authorization. This network is compliant by the regulatory authorities themselves. So that is my time. Thank you.